Good day, everybody. My name is Kunle Shonaiki, reaching you live from NTA Lagos Network Center. Co-hosting with me is John Kwesi, also known as LG. And this is Automedics. Good morning, John.
Welcome, viewers. Good morning to you, sir.
Who is Automedics?
Alright, since this is the first episode of the program, Automedics is a household known for its abilities in vehicle maintenance and repairs, and we've been doing this for a very long time now. We're also into parts sales and services, and also we do a lot of training.
And in our training, we're affiliated with so many corporate bodies and government parastatals. Some of the government parastatals is National Open Universities, National Automotive Design and Development Council, and corporate bodies OVH, also known as Orlando, and NU Retail Service. We train for the two corporate bodies, also train for NADDC, which is the National Automotive Design and Development Council. We're also a member of the Sector Skilled Council of the National Automotive Design and Development Council, and our affiliation with National Open University has to do with the area of certification.
We have our locations across the nation. We have locations in Lagos State, in Abuja, in Oshogbo. Here is a short background report on Automedics. Do enjoy it.
The challenges of finding solutions to the problems bedeviling the automobile industry in terms of servicing and repairs is quite huge in Nigeria. An average car owner today is faced with the task of sourcing and contracting a good, qualified and trusted automobile mechanic that will bring clear-cut solutions to their vehicle's faults. It is on this premise that Automedics Limited, one of the leading automechanical firms in Nigeria, is providing credible solutions in the area of automobile repairs and servicing. Automedics Limited, with workshops that can boast of various state-of-the-art equipment in auto repairs, are located off Ilupeju Bypass beside Crystal Estate, Agege Motor Road, Ilupeju. Automedics Limited is also located at 55 Ekotu-Idimo Road off Ile-Epo bus stop. These two state-of-the-art mechanical workshops run an integrated services in automobile engine repairs, vehicle maintenance, oven-baked automobile painting, car alignment, general bodywork and other services as may be required by the customer.
Here we train mechanics, we train those who are lettered. You don't need to be a mechanic, for example, to be trained here. Some of our instructors were graduates of industrial chemistry, some were graduates of history and industrial relations, but today are good, very, very good mechanics. At the risk of sounding immodest, I would say this is about the best auto repair and training workshop in the whole of Nigeria.
This top-notch auto repair brand have in its kitty latest equipment like launch scanner, 4-pole alignments, 2-pole alignments, balancing machine to mention a few.
I run a diagnostic on the car like to dictate the problem at which the car came in, and the machine I used in doing that is called Launch Scanner Launch 5. It's going to tell you directly what is wrong with the car, and you know exactly where to go from. It's not a situation where you go and start beating around the bush as to dictate a fault. An equipment that makes work easier in the workshop. It is called a lift. It's a 2-pole lift though. So it helps you take the car up, like when you need to walk under your car, like your suspension and some other aspects. So it lifts the car up for you to be like gain easy access under the car.
Automedics Limited is also a force to reckon with in the area of training auto technicians. With its automotive mechatronics training,
We also seek ways of enhancing productivity through training.
We have training facilities here. We have a classroom with all the equipment for training. And we also have audiovisual equipment that will also show the trainees and also our technicians what is also going on. So it's just like giving an x-ray of the vehicle, and they are looking at it right there and seeing exactly what is going on. And they also have the opportunity to ask questions, about some of the challenges they are having while working. And we expose them and then give them a true picture of exactly what it is and how it should be handled.
The training school basically is to give those who have the passion for vehicle maintenance and repairs, gives them an opportunity to be trained on their area of passion.
One of the latest innovations of the firm is the use of automotive mechatronic diagnostic tool to detect faults associated with automobiles rather than just guesswork. A trained auto technician gives us insight on the kind of maintenance they prefer at Automedics.
As you can see, we are doing the normal injector service. Then after that, we have drained the oil. You can see it on the floor. So based on what we get as a fault, so that's what we are trying to put in place.
The customer makes some complaints, so we are working towards that. It needs to do the lubrication service, the engine, and what we've done so far on it is we check the spark plugs. We realize they are bad, and for a customer to keep driving with a bad spark plug might be so damaging.
We rebuild this engine and we change the steering rack. That we let the engine work for a few hours, and we try bleed the steering. So we found out the steering rack was making some noise and it was shaking, and we found out it was the bushing that was shaking. So we tried changing the bushing. Instead of removing the steering rack again, we remove the shaft and we drop the axle. That would be very easier than removing the steering rack again.
Automedics Limited is poised to bring solutions to customers' vehicle challenges by providing qualitative customer satisfaction.
Automedics is a company where we tackle major car issues, and from records you can see that several cars that have been condemned, not working, have been brought to us, and by the grace of God, with the help of the modern technology, we've been able to sort them out and provide solutions to them.
Automedics, the best hand on your automobile and a place where the most complex mechanical problems can be solved easily. A visit will certainly convince you.
We do various engine overhauls here, and traditionally there are a lot of mechanics who don't do engine overhauls because of the technicalities involved with modern engines. But you know what, because some engines have been abused and overused because of bad lubrication service and all that, you have sludge building up in the engine. So when we take off engine from the vehicle, we first immerse all the parts inside a solvent that stays there about 24 to 48 hours to ensure that every carbon deposit and sludge is taken away before we start the process of reassembly again. So by the time we're done, it's like you having a brand new engine. You can see some of the ones we have done, some of them on the ground, not fully assembled though, but you can see from the appearance that they look very clean. And that gives you the assurance that when an engine is overhauled, it's even better than buying a used engine that you don't know how bad it's been used. So that is the quality assurance that we give you when we do an engine overhaul for you.
Strong communication skills, good diagnostic skills, problem-solving skills, solid work ethics, strong technical aptitude, and up-to-date technology. Watch Automedics on your reach-out station as we provide clear-cut solutions to your automobile problems. Automedics, showing every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. with a repeat broadcast at 11:30 a.m. on Saturdays. Automedics, the best hands on your automobile.
Welcome back. Our topic for today is actually on symptoms of a vehicle with a bad suspension. And we're going to be discussing that. And while we discuss that, we'll also take two car questions, two car issues. We'll discuss those ones as well before we call the show a wrap this morning.
And some of the questions we have here today, one is from a gentleman named Onimo Samuel Ofuji. It says, "Dear Automedics crew, the temperature gauge of my underpilot 2006 fluctuates from the cold region and back into the hot region and back while in traffic hold up. I also noticed the fan still running even after I turn off the engine and remove the key from the ignition. Kindly advise on possible causes and solutions."
Typically, with this kind of problem, I would expect that you probably have your check engine lamp on. If you don't have your check engine lamp on, it's because the sensor is primarily away from the computer. It just controls the fan, and now it's mixing up with the temperature of the vehicle. If you have the check engine lamp on, the first thing you would want to do is run a scan, a diagnostic scan, to see if you have any error pointing to the coolant temperature sensor. If you don't have any error, get your technician to check the wiring for the coolant temperature sensor.
He did complain that the fan will still be running after turning off the engine, which is an indication that the car is overheating excessively, because for the fan to be running, that means the coolant temperature sensor is still picking up the signal from the sensor that this engine is still hot.
But let's not forget something. It could be that the sensor is bad and is actually giving a false signal,
or somebody has tampered with it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's look at the second questions. This one is from Elias Abe Makinde. It says, "I drive a Honda CR-V. Have problem with the movement, especially when the speed get to 80 km/h. It keeps dropping speed. I had to force the throttle cable, then it will pick and speed well. What could be the problem?" Mind you, it didn't give us the year of the vehicle. It just told us it's a CR-V, but we don't know the year, so we don't know how electronic it is or how backfire it is.
It is. Well, typically, seeing that it's a CR-V and it has a symptom already, I think we'll approach the question based on the symptom. Based on your symptom, you try to accelerate, you get up to 80 and you try to push the car more and it's withdrawing back. Some of the items you need to check here, some of the areas you need to call your mechanic's attention to would be, first, do you have the check engine lamp on? If you do, run a scan. That would isolate the area of the vehicle where the mechanic needs to focus on. If you don't have the check engine lamp on, your mechanic can also do some basic checks. Checks the spark plug.
In this case, we can't really say it has to do with the transmission, because being a Honda, if it's a transmission issue, the D light will also be flashing.
Which is something you will notice
with the engine.
Yes.
So what it needs to be dealing with is actually with the engine.
Things concerning your engine are what you need to deal with. You need to check the fuel pump pressure. I'm not saying go and start replacing. What we're saying here is let them be inspected. Inspect the fuel pump pressure, inspect the spark plug especially. Sometimes you can have worn out spark plugs that will not allow the car to build more power when it gets to a certain distance. So,
and in a way, it kind of help us in a way by the way he explain the symptoms to us. Okay. Yes, you are going in the area of the fuel pump, because he said when he accelerates, it will flood the accelerator down and the car will not move past, which is an indication is asking for more fuel, but the engine is not getting that fuel. And for you to get the power you need, you need that fuel.
Then two more things I need to mention here. I have actually had experiences with a case where the air filter was bad, and because enough air wasn't coming into the engine,
which could be a part of the problem.
That's one. Then also there is also cases where the exhaust is partially blocked, the catalytic converter
is clogged up,
and you wouldn't be able to get enough power. So some of all these areas we just mentioned, you can call your mechanic's attention. All you to just take in is proper diagnosis.
And the best way to do this diagnosis is running a scan, because a scan will hone in on the area of the engine that needs to be addressed. Yes, it might be getting codes on the O2 sensors, but the O2 sensor is actually reporting what's with the catalyst. So is, most of them will just go ahead and replace the O2 sensor, whereas that's not what the problem. If he knows how to use the data stream, he can use the data stream to isolate where the problem is.
And another thing you can do is run a scan, get the fault code, and then send the fault code to the show. So we'll be able to direct you further on what to do. Now, going back to our discussion of the day, how to identify suspension issues with your vehicle. I think some of the basic symptoms you will get when the suspension starts to go bad is noise.
Noise, one. Two, the vehicle bouncing.
There's a harshness,
The harshness.
vibration.
Yeah, yes. So there's so many things. What will cause suspension to start going bad?
Well, from my own experience, I think sometimes owners of vehicle, without them knowing, they actually start the problem.
Contribute to the
They
problem.
contribute to it. Now, take for example, you take your car to the vulcanizer, and instead of putting the specified tire pressure into the tire, you ask the vulcanizer, don't cheat me, make sure you put all of them 60-60 or 40-40.
So
The tire becomes very
Hard.
hard. Now you start to drive. Most of our roads, sometimes we
It's
encounter
very-
pothole, and some of
very
them
undulating.
they are undulating. Now when you get to those roads where you have undulations or you have minor potholes, now the rebounding of that tire is very harsh
On
to the
shock-
suspension
shock
part.
bars.
The shock absorbers could actually go bad based on this harshness. The bushings that you have there, the amount of blow they are receiving from the tire now is very hard. That would weaken the bushings. That would
You see, what people
Boil
don't
into
realize
water.
is when we talk about suspension, you look at your wheels, your tires, it's part of your suspension.
exactly.
Your tire also absorbs some of the shock of the road.
Exactly.
When you overinflate them, have you ever seen, I remember back in the days when we played football, there's this ball called felele.
Yeah.
That when you
Overinflate
when you overinflate
You
it,
can't enjoy that
you
much.
cannot enjoy it.
You can't enjoy
So,
the ball.
And the same thing is actually happening to your tire. And what people don't realize is when you overinflate, chances of you damaging the tire is bad, because when the inflation is too much, it stretches the cord inside the tire.
Yeah.
And when you break the cord, the tire gets twisted, which will affect your suspension, because that's when you start seeing
The movements of the vehicle will change.
vehicle when you're driving, you notice some wobbly a kind of
Movement.
situation
Yes.
in the vehicle moving, and these are all things that contribute. Then don't let us forget where you live.
Exactly. That's another contributor. When it comes to suspension going bad, if you live in an area where the roads are not very good, and you get a car, for instance, and you didn't check for, okay, since the roads are not good, I think I need an SUV, a vehicle that is high enough to move around. If you get a car, I think the whole underneath of the vehicle, you would damage a lot of things there before you realize that that vehicle is not actually suited for that environment.
Well, you see, I used to call Nigerian roads more or less off-road, that most of us should be driving off-road vehicles, because even our major highways has a lot of potholes. And when you enter some of these potholes, the shocks that it sends or transmit to some of these, you can easily break a boat, you can easily bend your chassis, you can deploy your airbag, most especially when your suspensions are not good. You see some people, they will say they will be driving, and all of a sudden they enter a pothole, their airbag deploy.
Yeah.
The airbag is there to protect you, but also there are some sensors on the chassis of the vehicle that monitors the force, the impact. And when you enter a pothole, if your suspension is not good and the impact affects the way the body hits, it touches each other, more or less you have a ball joint that's bad, or you have some bushing that's bad.
Yeah.
The impact could trigger the airbag to also
because
deploy.
the sound will be too loud, and
Yeah.
it could just trigger the airbag to deploy. And also, let's not forget this, when you have worn out suspension, the best thing you do is not start selecting, okay, this one is nearly worn, because the minute you start to say this bushing has just several cuts and this one is totally worn out, let me change the one that is totally worn out with a new one and leave the one that is partially worn out. It's like trying to put in a new battery and an old battery.
You see, that will not work.
It will not work, because the both of them will go bad very early.
And apart from that, you're even wasting money by doing that. And you know, another thing people will do, which is very common within our technicians out there, is they will say, oh, I would rather you buy a Tokumbo. When you're buying a used part, this is a part that's been used. in another vehicle, you don't know the condition, you don't know how long this part. And more so when this parts come into Nigeria, it sits on a shelf somewhere. While it's sitting on a shelf, there's rust, but you have all this sea moisture that's already sitting on it. It's going to create this rust. So when you're buying parts, you better, almost especially when you're buying suspension parts, buy a genuine, brand new part. Yes, are there substandard parts out there? Yes, a lot. But if you go to the right place, it might be expensive, but you will get the right part. And it's better you change the right part with a new part and get what is worth it, that your vehicle will be sound and back on the road in no time.
And then something else you need to frequently do with your suspension, when you start to drive and you perceive harshness, or vibration and all that, I think it's best you get to your mechanic early, have him inspect what and what. Sometimes it could just be a loose part that needs to be tightened back properly. But if you keep driving it around with the loose part that is not tightened properly, it will end up damaging the part because it's not torqued to the right position,
specification,
right specification, and then at the end of the day you have that part damaged instead of torquing it properly. So from time to time you can take your car in for suspension check, where they check the conditions of those parts, and at the end of the day, if there is none bad, it can give you a safe bill, like everything is okay.
Since time is not on our side, we'll soon be rounding up. Let me just quickly add this. You know, a lot of people go to the tire and wheel center where they get their alignments done or balancing done. Anytime you go to any of these locations, you want to ask the technicians to check your suspension, because the vehicle is going to be raised up anyway.
Yes.
And when you notice that some of these parts is not good or it's bad, you're better off not doing anything on doing the balancing or the alignment until that particular part that's bad on your suspension is taken care of. Because if you're doing alignment or balancing, you're just wasting money. Because they will tell you it's right. Immediately you get back on the road, because those parts are bad,
it goes bad again.
It goes bad again. And this is where we're going to be wrapping up the show for today. What I would like to tell you guys is, it's always good to have your vehicle maintained. You don't want your vehicle to park you on the side of the road. Just like you eat and go to the doctor, your vehicle also needs a medical checkup, which is us at Automedics or any other mechanic that's out there.
I would say it's cheaper to maintain your vehicle than to eventually have a breakdown. Yeah.
Thank you for watching.